What's up, guys? Spencer Sheffield here. Got one of my best friends sitting right beside me, Evan Barnes. We were going to talk to you today about 4 or 5 of our the best rods that we like to use. You know, everybody knows around here locally that I'm a big Phenix rods advocate. I love using their rods. I've been with them for like 5 years now. Anybody I come in contact with on the road, traveling, fishing tournaments all over the country, I always turn them on to Phenix rods, let them know about them, I mean, they're just an excellent rod. But I never get on here on social media and really talk about them a whole lot as far as the rods I like to use for certain techniques. So we're going to kind of start a series here. We're going to start with the Feather series today, and every couple weeks we're going to talk about the next maker model that we like to use. You know, they've got a lot of different models, the M1, the Recon Elite, the K2s. I mean, the list goes on and on, the Maxims, a lot of different makes and models that are just excellent rods. But today we're going to start out with the Feathers. And so you ready to get them going?
I'm ready.
I'm going to start with the 6'9" medium heavy. This is an absolute excellent jerkbait rod, and that's what I like to throw on it the most is a jerkbait. And you know, I got this rod, started using it for a jerkbait probably about 2 years ago, and you know, it's one of them deals where when you get a rod and find a technique to use with it and they just like go together, that's what this 6'9" medium heavy is for a jerkbait. Now, there's a lot of other things you can use with this 6'9" medium heavy besides just a jerkbait, but a jerkbait is nearly exclusively what I'll throw on it. I'll give you an example. Some other things I really like to use with this rod, and that is like a prop bait, like a Brian's Bee or an Ama Helix pop. A Zara Puppy works excellent with it as well. Smaller Sammies, you could even go up to like a Spook Junior and throw on this rod a lot. But your jerk baits, this is a Yozuri deep diving jerk bait here, but like your regular 110 type jerk bait, shallow running jerk baits, it handles a small jerk bait pretty well. It's not too stiff or anything like that, but just an all-around excellent rod. You know, you guys that like a shorter rod for your top waters and things like that, this is the rod. You know, you could throw a square bill on this and stuff like that too if you wanted to. It'd be excellent for that as well. But that's the 6'9" medium heavy Feather. And this rod here, man, has got a lot of miles on it. I've had this thing, I think, since they come out 2 years ago. This is one of the originals. I mean, and you can see it's still in great shape. I mean, no issues.
You wish you had $1 for every bass you've caught on it.
Yeah, if I had $1 for every bass I've caught on this, I'd be able to buy a lot of them for sure. So, what's the next one you got?
All right, so here is actually one of my very favorite ones. This is the 7.7 extra heavy. And we just got back from Florida. You know, frogging and flipping's the deal down there most of the time. Both of us struggled a little bit, but I can say both of us are probably in love with this rod just as much as the jerkbait rod, just because that's what we like to do. Frogging, flipping, you know, just heavy duty. You know, obviously see braid on this rod here. This rod is actually one that they added to the lineup. This wasn't an original that was in the Feather series, and so for about a year we didn't have this rod. But we talked to the guys back at Phoenix, Vince and those guys, and we just needed a heavy duty flipping rod, and that's what this is, a 7.7 extra heavy. And this makes a phenomenal top-toed rod, frog rod. I used it a lot last year. Had a lot of success actually here on Hamilton where we're at, throwing this rod, throwing a frog and things like that. It's very versatile though. It's not like you're locked into anything. I know Spencer, he's a little taller than me, so he uses this for other things. He'll probably throw like a swim jig and a wobble head and football jig and stuff like that on it as well. But for me, it's more of that heavy duty flipping stick. You know, I'm short enough that I can still use it for, you know, skipping and things like that. So for me, man, that's one. If I can have this rod in my hand all day long, I am super comfortable and I am super confident. And this is, like I said, I mean, for just a all-around, all-purpose flipping rod, I promise you, you can't beat it. Check that out. That's a 7.7 extra heavy Feather.
And I'll tell you something I really like to use that rod for as well as a 10-inch worm. That is an unbelievable 10-inch worm rod. I mean, that's really what I really use it for a lot in the summertime. You know, your 15, 16 pound fluorocarbon, 20 pound fluorocarbon, and a 10-inch worm dragging around brush piles. So for a lot of you guys that fished out deep with 10-inch worms or even shallow, excellent rod for that. It's also a great rod for throwing a Senko around, you know, heavy grass and cypress trees and things like that too on fluorocarbon. So, all right, well, next in, I'm gonna go to the 7.7 medium heavy. And this is a rod I actually just got here about, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 months ago. I have not had this rod very long. This is 7.7 medium heavy. I was throwing like my rock crawler style baits on an M1, but and he's going to talk about the 7.7 heavy here in a little bit, but I wanted one just a little softer than the 7.7 heavy. And I just decided to order one of these to try it for a rock crawler, exclusively for a rock crawler pretty much. And you know, your crankbaits that run in that 7 to 12 foot depth. And man, have I fell in love with this 7.7 medium heavy. I mean, it is unbelievable how good it loads up. The castability with this rod on these smaller style crankbaits is unimaginable. Like, you can literally bomb it out there. Not that you always need to, but a lot of the places like we fish, it's not necessarily down rock banks and stuff. We throw it a lot out over deep flats, you know, or you know, that's 10 to 15 foot deep, and you want to get that crankbait down there and touch that stuff, and being able to throw it a long ways is a good thing to have. But even if you're not, the accuracy, you're not losing any accuracy with this rod being 7.7 medium heavy, or I haven't anyways. I mean, I've been going down some banks when I went pre-fish Smith Lake, throwing it down rock banks and things like that. I was able to be real accurate with the 7.7 medium heavy as well, fishing stuff like that. But man, does this rod load up awesome when you lean into them. It's just, it just feels so good, man. It's unreal. Haven't really tried a lot of other things with this rod. I pretty much exclusively got this 7.7 medium heavy for cranking, wintertime cranking. But I would imagine throwing like your 1/4 to 3/8 ounce rattle traps on this, you know, breaking fish back in creeks, early spring, late fall. This is going to be a stellar rod for something like that. And I'm sure the list goes on. Like I said, this rod's pretty new for me, so I haven't got to experiment with it a lot. But pretty much, like I said, I got this rod exclusively for cranking and little traps and things like that. But very impressed with how this rod loads up. It's a pretty fast tip to it, but it's got a lot of parabolicness to it. But it really hooks them fish, loads into them very well. I mean, it's just it's very nice, you know, fighting fish all the way to the boat. I love it. But that's the 7.7 medium heavy feather there. And yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a rod for like a rock crawler, you've been looking for one, I'm telling you, this is the rod right here. So definitely want to check that one out.
For sure. You know, that rod actually, you know, you said that you hadn't had it for very long. I actually pretty much had it since it first come out, and it definitely holds a special place in my heart, because that's the rod I was throwing with those couple of top 10s in the Coastal Series on Dardanelle, throwing a 2.5 there on the river. And so I mean, it's phenomenal for that too. Your bigger shallow water crankbaits, you know, your square bills and stuff like that, awesome for that. We're gonna talk about next the 7.7 heavy. Just a little bit of a step up as far as power from the 7.7 medium heavy, obviously we just talked about. This rod, man, it may be one of the most versatile ones in the whole lineup that you could do literally everything with. If you were going to buy one to do just about everything, that would probably be the one to buy, because you can literally do just about everything with it. Spencer's got a chatterbait tied on this one. I'm telling you, as far as a chatterbait goes, man, it has that perfect action. You know, you don't want a super stiff rod, and you don't want a super soft one either. You want one that's got a good, you know, just a good hook penetration, but also lets it load up just perfectly. And that's what this rod is. You can skip really well with it. It's got a soft enough tip that you can skip under docks and lay downs and stuff like that. Yeah. But for me, you know, I do a lot of different things with it as well. I think we both throw a trap on it. That's for a 1/2 ounce ounce or even a 3/4 ounce trap. It works really, really well. You know, both of us love to do that. It's awesome, awesome trap rod. But for me, I'll just tell you another little story. You know, I had this rod at Smith. You know, we're headed to Smith next week. The last time that I was there, and actually caught a bunch of fish on it, and I was throwing a pretty small, like a 3.8 swim bait on it, but on a heavy head, you know, so it made just a phenomenal, just a smaller type swim bait rod, you know, say like a 5-inch and under swim bait rod, open hook. Man, it was phenomenal. So a 7.7 heavy is definitely going to be just that most versatile, that all-around rod. And I know Spencer, he's in love with it too, for sure.
Yeah, I throw, like I said, I know he mentioned it, but I throw a trap on this rod a lot. But I'll be honest with you, for about 2 years, I actually threw like my 5XD and 6XD crankbaits on this rod too. It handles them very well. And I don't know how many fish I caught deep cranking with this rod, but it is an excellent rod for them crankbaits that run like at 12 to 16 foot range. Very good rod for that. But a rattle trap, a chatterbait, heck, even like a bigger walking type spook bait, if you're throwing it on 30 or 40 pound braid, it's excellent for that. And I agree with him. If you're going to buy one rod out of the whole Feather lineup and you only had one to buy, probably the 7.7 heavy would be the way to go because of its versatility. Right. I mean, it's so versatile. And yeah, it's another awesome rod. I definitely that probably is my favorite one in the lineup. It's a 7.7 heavy, honestly. Next, last but not least, the one we're going to talk about, and that's the 7.3 extra heavy. This one's about as versatile as a 7.7 heavy, honestly. You can see I've got a Spro frog tied on it. You would think that it, you know, I know a lot of guys like throwing a frog on a longer rod, your 7.6, 7.5, 7.7, whatever. I do, like if it's really nasty stuff, like I'm talking really thick vegetation, I'll go to the 7.7 extra heavy for that. Just because it gives me a little bit more length. Not that the rod's stiffer, but I got more length on the blank itself, move more line on the hook set. But I've winched some big ones with the 7.7 or the 7.3 extra heavy out of the nasty too. But this rod is great for skipping a frog up under overhanging limbs, trees, under boat docks, just throwing it in open water in general. The 7.3 extra heavy is an awesome rod for a frog. But I'm going to tell you what the majority of people are going to find with this rod, what you're really going to like it for, and that's your 1/2 ounce, 5/16, 3/8, half, 7/16 ounce jigs. Man, I can't tell you the amount of people I've turned on, guys around here with this rod. I mean, I can name like 10 of them off the top of my head that I've said, you need to try the 7.3 extra heavy Phenix Feather for a jig, and they own like 10 of them now.
Yeah.
I mean, they love it for a jig. I mean, it's unbelievable for like pitching around docks. And you don't want to go to like a 3/4 ounce jig, obviously. But like I said, your 5/16 to 1/2 ounce jig, like your Ox Mini flip jig, that's what I use a lot on it. Just pitching around docks, shallow wood, heck, pitching smaller creature baits around the edge of bushes and things like that. This rod's going to get them out. It's a very sensitive rod, so throwing stuff like a jig on it is great. You know, whether you're hopping it, flipping it, crawling it, it doesn't matter. It's just an excellent rod for a jig, a frog. Smaller worms, like an 8-inch worm, I throw on this. Little speed worms, things like that. You can throw Senko, weightless Senko on this as well. But I do use this rod a lot for pitching like a 5-inch Senko, baby D-bomb, things like a speed crawl, 2-5 speed crawl. That's what I use a lot, pitching around, you know, grass, not too thick of grass, but like more scattered out grass clumps, water willows, things like that. Actually, when I won the Mr. Bass Classic up at Dardanelle, this is the rod I was using pitching a speed crawl around water weeds too. And and you were there with me that last day. You seen, I mean, it does an excellent job for that. But you've got a lot of experience with this rod too.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of things you like to use it for, so you can tell me about that.
Yeah, I'd say if I had to pick one, I know I talked a lot about the 7.7 extra heavy, but if I just had to pick one rod for me literally to have all year long, you know, really anywhere, this is probably going to be it, because I do love to throw a swim jig too. And it's personally the one that I like. Like I said, I'm a little bit shorter. I love throwing a swim jig, and so that is my rod of choice for a swim jig. And I think you could say for a lot of guys, they would love throwing a swim jig on that. Just like Spencer said, you know, from a 5/16 up to a half, you know, a football jig and stuff like that. Actually, it's a rod that I throw a wobble head on too. You know, I like it just a little bit shorter for me, like I said, but just overall, man, I'm in love with this one too. I know we say we're in love with all of them, but we literally are.
Yeah,
I mean,
really
you can't have you can't have enough of them, especially rods like these. We probably have 3 or 4 or 5, 6 a piece, you know, of this rod. And so if you, again, I know we said the 7.7 heavy was one to pick up, but if you can at all stand to, I'm telling you right now, the 7.3 extra heavy, you will fall in love with it for doing a lot of different things that we love to do here in Arkansas. The one thing that we haven't really talked about as far as the line completely as a whole is these are probably, I would have to get, you would really have to search hard to find a rod under $200 that's as light as these rods, as light as and as sensitive as these rods are,
and the quality.
I mean, it's unbelievable how light they are. You pick them up off the shelf and you're like, I mean, you can't even feel them. I think some of them weigh like 3.4 ounces. I mean, they're just super light. And so for under $200, I'm telling you, you would be hard pressed to find any rod that's even close to come to the Phenix Feather for sure.
Yeah, that 7.3 extra heavy, I throw a lot of like a Super Spook 3DP pencil, the bigger walking top waters on, you know, your 30 to 40 pound braid, 65 pound braid even, which that frog's on 65, but it's really good for that as well. But yeah, I'm going to echo what he said. You know, guys that have gotten into fishing in the last year or two but are really starting to get serious now and really wanting to chase after their dream in fishing, or getting, you know, like I said, more serious in tournaments, you want to check out the Phenix Feather line. I've been making a living doing this for 13 years. Since the day I graduated high school, this is all I've done. And half the rods on my deck, almost every tournament, are feathers still. And they're the cheapest rod in their line. Well, you got the Maxim. But this is the next step up from the Maxim. And the sensitiveness of these rods, the quality of these rods, they've got it all covered from the 6.9 to the 7.7 extra heavy. And there's really not anything you can think of that you could throw that one of these rods can't handle. Maybe a giant glide bait or a big, you know, swim bait, maybe not. You want to go to one of the other models, but as far as like your crankbaits, your jigs, your jerk baits, your top waters, the Feather will have you covered. They're, like I said, they're a very affordable rod. Like he said, there's not many rods you can buy with this type of quality under $200, and you're not gonna, that's the deal, you're not gonna have to spend as much to still get the quality that you're looking for. So anybody looking to get into this lineup of Phenix rods, these feathers, you can message me, Evan. He can definitely point you in the right direction. I can as well. Like I said, these are an excellent rod for your beginner guys that are getting really serious, that doesn't want to fork out over $200, $300 in a rod. These are very affordable, and you're not going to lose any quality either. I mean, like I said, once you pick one of these up, you're going to be like, man, I mean, you just know, once you pick them up, you're like, these are the deal. So
Yeah, for sure. I'd say, you know, like Spencer touched on a little bit earlier, you know, there's been several guys that we've turned on to this series that have just literally fallen in love with them. And I promise you, I don't know anybody from working with them on a daily basis. I don't know anybody that's just bought one. They've always come back, always been repeat customers, and that's a big time thing when you're talking about, you know, rods. You want more and more and more of them just because you're so comfortable with them, so confident, and you know, that's one of the biggest things, is being confident in your equipment. And I can say there is not another rod out there that I could pick up that I would be any more confident in than Phenix for sure. But the Feather lineup, without a doubt, is hard to beat for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. But yeah, guys, so anybody, like I said, anybody looking, get in touch with me, Evan. and we'll point you in the right direction. We got a whole lineup that we're going to go through, a little series we're going to do. You know, we've got the Maxim, the M1, the Recon Elite, the K2s. I mean, the list goes on and on. They specialize in swim bait rods too. I mean, Phenix does. Their swim bait rod lineup is unbelievable. So I know there's a lot of guys out there, big swim bait advocates. They know that Phenix is who they trust. That's what they use, and we'll get into that later on. But I really appreciate you guys watching today. Definitely be sure to check out Phenix. Just go do your research on them. You'll see. I mean, go to Tackle Warehouse, read the reviews on these rods. I mean, everybody that gets one, they're always a repeat customer. You're always going to buy another, and you're going to be so happy that you checked them out. And I appreciate you guys watching today, and it won't be long. We're going to be back on here, and we're going to be talking about another line of rods that Phenix got. So appreciate it, guys, and we'll be talking to you later.
See you.